Hey guys, I want to talk about a video that I saw on Instagram. And what it was like this kid, and he had to be like 3 or 4 years old, and he was at a Hooters restaurant, and then he walks up to like a Hooters girl, and he actually puts his hand on her butt, and she's actually smiling and chuckling, and this kid's actually kind of like laughing about it. And you know what? First of all, that's really, really bad because I was reading some of the comments on Instagram by saying, hey, you know what? It's not good that, he's people are laughing at his behavior, and you know what, this kid can grow up to be like a sexual predator, or it's a clear sign that he may grow up to be a predator or whatever, since he's going out and he's putting his hands on people. So I have a couple of things to say about it. That sometimes, yes, there are people who are sexual predators, and sometimes as children they have heightened hormones, and they may be like, hey, you know what, when I touch somebody or when I see something that I like, I'm going to put my hands on it because I have no sense of self-control. Or just like an addiction, you leave money out and then you have a relative that's a drug addict. They're going to be like, hey, I don't care about anything else but taking that money, and whatever happens really. I'm going to gamble on whatever trouble I get myself into because the reward of having what I want outweighs it. So with that said, really, I think it's too young to tell, because you need to give that kid a psychological evaluation, and you need to kind of give like a couple of them to really see if, hey, this kid has a form of sexual predator or antisocial disorder. But I think the other big issue is that that's actually unfortunate, because the problem is that that's a hard situation, because on one side you need to teach your kid a lesson, and on the other side that's a little too young to be like, hey, this kid needs to be sent to jail or a psychiatric ward, or he needs to be labeled as a sexual predator or sexual assault, really. Because then we get into a point where, like, I was in Oklahoma and there was like this 4-year-old girl that was like running behind me and just trying to put her mouth on my back, really, when I was sitting down, and her parents grabbed her and pulled her away, really. If I pressed charges on her, or if I did what they do in the old days of just turn around smacking her in the face and saying, hey, don't put your hands on people, hey guys, teach your child assault, really, that wouldn't help that girl learn that behavior. But I also think that, the other issue is, even with this kid, I don't think like pressing charges or saying, hey, he needs to go to a psych ward, maybe he needs some medication or whatever, because there's plenty of people who try to do that. But I think the big lesson is, how should we teach that child? And I would ultimately say that I think the parents should just have their meal and go home, and then they should talk to the kid and be like, hey, you know what, no dessert for a week, or hell, no TV or video games for a week, or no iPad, and we need to talk about this. You put your hands on somebody, and that's not okay, and you need to write me a page or 2 pages on what was going through your head at that time. Did you like did you like her butt? Did you find it attractive? Did you think it was funny? What was going through your head at that time? And then you need to talk to them and say, hey, you know what? Okay, well, you're a little kid and you think butts are funny. You think that it's like a little prank. We need to talk about boundaries, and we need to say that, hey, you can't do that. It is a restaurant where people dress like that. So you have to be respectful of people's boundaries, and also talk to them about like, hey, this is why you don't put your hands on people, because you make people feel very uncomfortable. And then the other thing too is that you have to tell them that putting your hands on people is legal, because of boundaries and everything like that. You need to lecture your kid, create some consequences. And if they say something like, you know what, I can't get enough of butts or whatever, really, then you have to talk a little bit more about self-control and say, hey, you know what, you don't put your hands on people, because that's just not appropriate. That hurts people's feelings. The next thing is that touching anybody in inappropriate parts of the body, like their butt, is bad because it's inappropriate. It hurts feelings. Sometimes people can hit you back, or sometimes people can call the police and take you away, really, So those are the things that need to be taught to this child. And then also some punishments, and being like, hey, you know what, because you did this, we got to punish you, because you know what, we have to send a message that you can't do stuff like this. And that's the best thing to do, because I think the other issue, and I think one bad thing about this video, is that what's happening is that, if people are laughing along and find it cute, it's sending a bad message to that child to say, hey, that's funny, or hey, that's just awesome behavior, because you need to just reinforce, no, that's not okay. You violated somebody's boundaries. You did something very inappropriate, and there has to be consequences for your actions. Otherwise, you're going to raise kids who just think that, okay, you know what, whenever they do something bad, everybody's in on the joke, really. And then they're going to further push limits, and they're going to further do just, inappropriate things. And then, you know what, and then bad things are going to happen, really. Like, I think I told you guys a story when I did a video about my younger brother, like how he thought it was funny if he ran out of the house and ran down the lawn. Really, there was the road. And I remember, like, one time, like I said, that I just took him over my knee and I spanked the hell out of him because he was doing that and using profanity and other things like that. He really needed that, and that stopped it. But I remember one time my dad shouted on the top of his lungs, really, and that also got him to stop. Another time that he did that, because he had to learn it's not a game. You can hurt yourself. Or the other thing too is that what happens if there's a stranger that abducts him. So sometimes when we have kids that do things that are not okay, we may say, hey, that's funny. No, we have to call them out, and we have to do it appropriately. I think the first time a kid does this, yes, a conversation, a punishment, a lecture, quizzing kids on what they learn is appropriate. Next time they do that, you amp it up a little bit. Or you may have to yell at them or be like, hey, you know what, you like touching people's butts? I'm going to touch your butt, and just give them like 10 across the ass, really. Just so they understand that that's not appropriate, and then lecture them again. Say, hey, this is why this happened, because you can't go out and do that. And then there are some people that may say, hey, you know what, the parents are wrong because they brought the kid to Hooters. Well, you know what, Hooters is not a strip club, and Hooters is not like bringing somebody out of behind the scenes porn shoot or a sex shop or whatever, really. I think that's more of a big issue. But no, I mean, then we live in a world of, okay, you know what, now we got to bring our kids to Disneyland and Disney-themed restaurants and friendlies and kid-themed things because we can't control our kids, or we get scrutinized for bringing our kids to more mature places. Or we're like, hey, you know what, maybe we should shut down Hooters because it's not appropriate for children. These things happen. No, because then we're doing what we see a lot of in American culture, which is shift blame. And shift blame is not good. And why should we kind of ruin Hooters for everybody? Why should we ruin, more adult-themed things for everybody? There are women who like working at Hooters or other places where they are comfortable with their bodies. Why should that all go away? Because, some people may say, hey, the problem is that Hooters objectifies women or sexualizes women, and it puts them in a vulnerable spot, even to children who may think it's funny to touch a woman, or they may just be, little horn dogs, and they may just need some, just more training on social etiquette. That's kind of been an issue in this country. But you just have to really, in my opinion, as I've said before, hold people responsible for their actions and hold children responsible. Because if not, then we just live in the world of people don't know whatever the hell they want to do. And we've kind of realized, like, the past 20 years, with a lot of the decline of old school parenting, where you respect the kid, expect the kid to act right in public, you lecture kids, you hold kids accountable, or sometimes you tear that ass up, really. A lot of that has gone away, and we've kind of seen the end result of that, where we just shift blame, we find things cute, or we just say, hey, you know what, okay, well, this video is now on the internet. Now there may be over 1 million views to this video. The parents are happy because they're getting that YouTube check or that Instagram check for the advertisements. But no, you are just not teaching your kid the appropriate lesson, really. So I really hope that is taught to that child. You do not put your hands on people. and that is sexual harassment and sexual assault. And it's good to fix that behavior while that kid is, either 3 or 4 or 5 years old, instead of, fixing that behavior when they're adult and they're a registered sex offender.